Hi everyone, it's Dina and I'm back again today with another casual beading tutorial. Today's tutorial is going to be the third out of 3 tutorials using the Double Rainbow Design Challenge Kit produced by SoftFlex Company and was released in February of 2025. With that kit, I'm making 3 different videos. I've already released the earrings and a bracelet, and today we're going to be doing the necklace portion. So out of this kit, you're going to need the following beads. We should have 3 of these rainbow beads left over, so you'll need the last of those 3. You should have 4 of your turquoise bicone beads left over. You should have 6 of your matte crystal colored beads left over. 4 of your orange crystal rondelle shaped beads. And then you should have several of your 6mm check fire polish beads left over as well. These are the crystal AB color. So you need to get all of those out. We're also going to be using the spacers, the spacer beads that look more like snowflakes to me, rather than the ones that we used in the earrings that looked more like a traditional daisy spacer. These are the ones that have like the spokes to them that kind of look more like snowflakes to me. So you'll need that. You're also going to need the lobster clasp that came in the kit. The seed beads that we're going to be using today are going to be 15-0s. These are all 3 of these are going to be Miyuki. So the 15-0 size or color is the Duracoat galvanized silver. The number for Miyuki on that one is 4201. The 11-0s that we're going to be using are going to be color number 402F. And that is going to be the matte white color. And then we're just going to need a couple of 8-0s, and then that's going to be our matte crystal beads, and this is the number 131F. Now we're going to need some 4mm jump rings in order to connect your clasp and your 6mm jump ring so your clasp has something to hook onto at the ends of the necklace. I have some extra 6mm jump rings here because I'm going to make an extender chain. It's going to be about 2 inches or so. So with that, I'm also going to do a little charm to put on the end of the extender chain. And I'm just going to use a little ball head pin and then one of my 6mm beads and just make a simple loop at the end of it. So gather up these supplies. Oh, and I almost forgot. You're going to need something to do your bead work with. So you're going to need a needle. I'm using the size 11 Pony brand needle today. I have a second one off to the side just in case I need it, and I'll explain that a little bit more in the upcoming clips. I have a comfortable length of thread on my needle as well. I'm using the white Wildfire today in 0.006 size. Dragon thread size 8 would be also a very good type thread to use for this as well. And then if you are doing the jump rings, you'll need some pliers, so that way you can connect your jump rings and open them and close them. So now that we've gotten through all the supply list, go ahead and get your beads out. You'll need all of your special beads up here, your spacers, and then your 11-0s and your 15-0s, and just 1 or 2 of your 8-0s sitting out. All the rest of it you can go ahead and put aside, and we'll get it out in another clip. Meet you back in a second. Alright, so now that we have all of our beads out and ready to go, I have mine already set up in a pattern that I will do, and we will also be doing a double right angle weave stitch in between each of these beads. So it's going to be very similar to the bracelet if you've already watched the bracelet. We're just going to embellish that double raw unit a little bit with our 15-0s this time. So go ahead and pause this if you'd like, so that way you can get your beads oriented in the same pattern that I have. I'm basically starting off with just 3 of the crystal beads at the moment, because I'm going to finish out this portion of it, and we're going to do something similar to what we did with the bracelet as well, where we leave a little extra room on both ends, so if we have to add extra crystal beads, then we can. So go ahead and get these laid out if you haven't already done so. Don't forget to add an extra crystal AB off to the side, so that way if you want to do the charm, then you'll have an extra one. And then all my extra crystal ABs are just sitting over here off to the edge, so that way the camera doesn't go crazy and try to focus on everything that's on my bead mat. So first thing we're going to do is put on a stop bead. So I'm just using one of my 8/0s. I'm going to go down about 3/4 of the way down the thread. So I'm basically taking the thread and I'm measuring it down to my elbow. I'm holding onto it just slightly here in my hands, and then I'm pulling on it until it gets down to my elbow. And that's almost about 1/4 of amount of the thread that I have. I'm starting off with, excuse me, goodness, can't talk right now. I'm starting off with about 5.5 feet of thread or so. And then to add the stop bead, we're just going to go back through the 8/0 just one more time. Alright, so now we're going to start off with our double right angle weave. So to do the first one, we start off with just 4 beads, and then pull those down to the stop bead, and then you just go back through that first bead one more time to make your first roll unit. And then when you do that, it should look something similar to that. It's okay if it's not completely up against the stop bead. That's perfectly fine, because we'll end up doing some other things here in a minute anyway, so it's kind of nice to have the stop bead a little bit out of the way. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to start making little points in between the seed beads to make it look more like a diamond at the end. So pick up one more 11/0. You're coming out of the first bead, go through that second bead in the line. We're going to end up adding a total of 4 of these. And then when you pull it down, it sits out more like a picot stitch. Then we're going to add on number 2. And do the same thing, go through the next 11/0 in line. And that's the way it should look. Number 3, coming out of that one, go through the next one in line. And then pick up number 4, and you're coming out of bead number 3 when we want to go back through, or coming out of bead number 4, you want to go back through bead number 1, just like that. And then when you pull tight, and they get oriented in the correct fashion, that's what it should look like. It now looks like a diamond. So now we're going to embellish this diamond before we move on to the next step. So we're coming out of this bead right here. We need to get to that top bead up here. So just move through that top bead and then come out just like that. Then we're going to pick up 3 of our 15s. And this is the easiest way that I always felt when I do this type of embellishment. Coming out of the right hand side of the top bead, I'm going to go through the right hand side of the sticky out bead down here in the bottom. And then I'm going to pull those 15s to where they sit on the top. They're going to try to flip to the back sometimes, so just make sure they're always sitting on the top of your work. And this is kind of hard to hold with the first one sitting here. So now your beads should look like that. We want to go back through those 3 15s that we just added towards the top side again. And when we add those, go back through those 3 15s and make sure your thread is somewhat tight. It should sit just like that on top of your double right angle weave. Now to finish this out, we started off coming out of the right hand side of that topmost bead. We need to go through the left hand side. So basically we're beading in a clockwise fashion. And then that finishes out the decoration of the double right angle weave. So now you have that done. Now we need to start adding our other beads. So to do that, we're coming back out of that same bead again that we started off with before we did the embellishment. You want to continue through the outer beads here. You can go through the next one and then skip the point beads if you want to. You can go through all of the beads, just whatever is more comfortable for you. Just make sure you're coming out of the tip bead down here at the bottom without poking yourself in the thumb with your needle. Just like that. Now we're going to add on our first crystal bead. So we're going to pick up a crystal, also pick up another 11-0. When you pull that down, it will look like that. Now we need to complete this by going back through the crystal, skipping over the 11-0, and then round out by going back through that tip bead and the double right angle unit up here at the top. Still going in that clockwise fashion, so make sure you're going from the right to the left through that bead. And then when you pull this, now you have your crystal attached. So now we need to get back down to this bead again so we can add our next double right angle unit, which is slightly different than the first one that we did. So go back through your crystal bead, and then go back through your seed bead that you added down at the other end of the crystal, going from left to right, which right now is bottom to top. That would be left to right. And now you first add the 4 seed beads just like we did in the first round, or the first one that we did. So add your first 4 seed beads, but you're going to go through this bead that's underneath the crystal bead again to create a circle. Now you're going to consider that bead that we just went through, that is going to be the tip bead that's going to be in your next right angle unit. Come on, focus. There we go. So this bead is going to be your tip bead in your next right angle unit. So how do you add your next tip bead? You need to proceed through that first 11-0 that you added in the 4 that we just added. So proceed through that first one. Now we're going to add the tip bead number 2. So pick up an 11-0 and go through your next 11-0 in line. Pick up another 11-0. This is going to be your third tip bead that you're going to be adding. So go through the next 11-0 in line. And then to add your last tip bead, because you already have 3 of them sitting there now, you need to add 1 more and then go through that 4th bead that we added in that grouping of 4. And when you pull tight, you now have another double right angle weave unit. So let's do the embellishment again before we move on to the next. So go through that tip bead that's directly underneath the crystal. And then we need to add our 3 15s. And then we're coming out of that right hand side again. So this is the same as what we did earlier. Go from the right to the left. Pull that down, make sure it sits on the top. Pull it down tight and go back through those 3 15s. And I'm putting my thumb there just to make sure that the beads stay there, like that. And then you want to go back through that 11-0, going from left to right again in a clockwise fashion. And then that's all you do. So then now we get down to this tip bead again down here in the bottom. Just move your way around the beads again and come out down here. Then you're going to add your next bead in line, which right now is just going to be another crystal bead. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add the 3 crystals, then the orange one, the crystal matte color, and then the turquoise bicone. When we get to this one, I'll come back and I'll show you how to add this one. It's the same thing, but we're going to add a couple extra of the spacer beads in between. So I'll do this first little section and I'll come back and I'll show you this part. So give me just a moment and I'll be right back. Alrighty, so I am back with two different things. We're about to add our first rainbow bead, so I'll talk to you about that in just a second. But if you don't notice, I do have a unfortunately broken bead. So sometimes during the manufacture of these glass beads, like I said, they're glass. So sometimes during the manufacturing process, a flaw may happen and sometimes you'll get a broken bead. So this bead should be right here at the end of the necklace. It should be this next one that I should have added. So it should be sitting right here next to this one. So what do you do when something like this happens? You just have to adjust the way that your necklace is going to look. So my necklace is going to miss this bead up here. I'm just going to take that one out. Then that way I'll still have symmetry down here and it'll look somewhat similar to the bracelet. And then that way I'll have the symmetry down here, and then from here on out it'll look the same as well. So unfortunately that happens from time to time, but you just have to figure out what to do to make it look right. And then move on. That's all you have to do. So as far as the rainbow beads, I don't know if you noticed in that first clip or not, but I have them facing in a certain way. I have this rainbow bead starting with the blue to the red. This one goes from the red to the blue. And the last one goes from the blue to the red again, because that's how double rainbows are. You always start off with the red and it goes down to the purple, and then the next one that's below it starts at the purple and goes to the red. So they're mirror images of each other. So that's what I'm doing with these beads as well. And if you'd like to follow along, then go ahead. So this next one that we're going to add, since the crystal broke, I'm going to add one of the spacer beads first. Then I'm picking up the rainbow bead from the blue to the red side, and then picking up one of the other spacers again. So that's the only difference. You just pick up all of that. Go ahead and pick up your 11-0 also, which are all scattered all throughout my bead mat again, because I did throw them off the little felt like I've done in the last two videos. At least I wasn't recording this time. So go ahead and do that, and then you just go right back through your spacer, your rainbow bead, and your spacer, and you continue on in the same fashion. So that's all it is with these. And you'll go through this in clockwise fashion without making a knot in your thread. And then when you have that attached, it'll look something similar to that. So then just go back through your beads like we have been doing and then continue on. So like I said, yours is going to have the extra little turquoise beads sitting there if you're doing the same pattern that I am. If not, you'll have something that looks similar to me. So go ahead and continue all the way down to the extra, these three, the third crystal bead. Don't forget to add your double right angle weave after it, and then meet me back and I will show you what we do next. Alright, so I've gotten most of the necklace already beaded together and everything, and I've already measured it. Ends up being about 10 1/4 inches so far. I'm trying to shoot for something around an 18-inch necklace, so I'm going to leave about an inch for the clasp. So I'll need to bead about 17 inches total is what I'm going to plan for. Now with that being the case, I need to add about 3.5 inches more on both sides. So that's one of the reasons why we left so much thread on one side on the beginning of it. So that way if we needed to go back and add some more, we could on a little bit easier way rather than just adding thread. So I'm going to add, I've split apart the rest of my 6mm, what are these, fire polish beads. I've split it apart so I have 6 more on one side and then I'll do 6 more on this side. It ends up being that for my beadwork, one of the 6mm crystals plus the double right angle weave ends up being almost a ½ inch. So I would need technically 7 more sets on either side, but since I only have enough to do 6 on both sides, then I'm just going to do the 6. After that, I will probably add 1 or 2 more right angle weave, the double right angle weave units, in order to get to my total of about 17 inches. So that's going to be my next little step, is finishing both sides. And then once I'm done with that, I'll come back and we'll start talking about adding that clasp. Alright, so I am done with the beaded portion of the necklace, I believe. So I've got everything done and it's coming out to just under 17 inches. It's like 16 and I don't know, like maybe 17/18, something like that. It's just underneath 17 inches. So I'm perfectly happy with the length that it's at, especially with adding the 2-inch extender chain. That'll make it a little bit more versatile for anybody else to wear it as well. So now let's go into putting the rest of our necklace together. I'm going to go ahead and make the charm real quick. So if you're not familiar with this, I'm going to get out the head pin and then I'm going to slide the 6mm onto the head pin, and I'm just making sure that the head pin can't go through the little ball portion because the ball is kind of small, but I'm just making sure that the ball won't go through the head pin. And I'm going to use my chain nose pliers here. I'm just going to make a little small bend in just above the bead. Just trying to gauge it just a little bit, just so there's a little bit of wiggle room right there. Don't want a whole lot of wiggle room, just a little bit. And then I'm going to cut off the excess. There again, just kind of measuring at the end of my finger, just like that. And I'm going to cut off the excess of the head pin. Put that aside. And then I'm just going to take my round nose pliers and I'm just going to make a simple loop just by starting to twirl the loop around and then adjust it if I need to. And just so I can get that done, something similar to that. And I'm trying to make sure that this is touching, because I want to make sure that it's touching, that there's not a lot of room to where the jump ring can fall out of it. And it's kind of far away from my face, that's why I keep looking at it. Okay, yeah, that looks okay. So now we have our little charm made. So now we can get everything put together. So let me get those pliers out of the way real quick so I don't get those mixed up. So what we want to do on both ends, this is going to be the same. I'm going to have a 8/0 that's going to be square stitched on to this last portion of our double right angle weave stitch. So pick up your 8/0 and then we're going to go straight back through the 11/0 that's there at the tip. And then when you pull it down, your 8/0 may sit wonky like it just did with mine, but that's okay. Just play with it a little bit and get it to sit in the correct fashion like that. Then we're going to go through this 8/0 one more time. Just put two thread paths through that bead and then you should be okay. So now that one's set up. Now we need to go and tie off our thread. I would suggest to do at least 3 knots if you can. With my thread here being this short, I might only be able to get 2 knots. It just depends. So to do a knot, I'm going in between 2 beads here, and I'm going underneath the thread itself, in between the 2 beads. I'm creating a loop with the thread, and then I'm taking my needle and going through that loop. And here comes Kylie again. Kylie, we're going to have the same issue that we did the last video. Yeah, you're going to stand right in front of me. Kitty cat. I'm trying to get my thread out from behind that bead right now, and trying to look around the cat at the same time. Okay, now she jumped down. Alright, so you want to make sure that your knot is in between the two beads and then just pull down tight. 2 videos in a row. That's pretty funny. Anyways, let's move on to the next little section. I'm going to flip this to the back so it's a little bit easier to see. I'm going to go through that tip bead plus the next bead in line. And like I said, I may not have enough thread to do three knots, so I think I'm going to stop just after this one. I'm going to go underneath those threads again because there's a couple of threads in between these two beads. I'm going to create my loop. And yeah, it's starting to get kind of tight. So create my loop and try to go through that loop with the needle. There we go. And then I need to make sure that that knot stays in between the two beads like that, and then pull tight. Now all I'm going to do is I'm going to move just a couple of beads away, and I'm still all within this last right angle weave unit, and then I'm going to tie off or burn off my thread right here. And then this side is complete. Just like that. Burn down, leave about 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch of thread, and then burn the rest of it down close to the product. And now this is set up to be able to add the jump ring. And we need to do that with this other side, so I will break away. I will do that real quick so you don't have to watch me do it one more time, and then I'll come back and we'll put the rest of this together. Alright, let's get that jump ring on. So let's open the jump ring. Need 2 sets of pliers for this. I have a chain nose and a flat nose that I'm using for this. So grab a hold of your jump ring on either side of the opening and then twist it open like that. Now since we're going through an 8/0, you want to make sure that you twist it open enough to where you can get the jump ring through the 8/0 itself. So when you're putting these goodness, excuse me. When you're putting these inside the 8/0s, you just have to take it slow. Sometimes it goes through really quick and easy. Other times you have to kind of wiggle them through and just kind of guide it through the jump or through the 8/0. There we go. So just like that. And now we have the 8/0 or the jump ring on. This side I'm going to go ahead and put my lobster clasp. So I'm just going to slide that one on before I close up the jump ring. And to close it up, you just grab it on either side of the opening again, and then you twist it back closed. You want to try to twist just a little bit past the opening and then go backwards again. That kind of helps make sure that you have a good connection and it's closed pretty well. So now you have your lobster clasp on. Now the other side, I've already put the jump ring on, and I went ahead and I put on one of the jump rings that the lobster clasp can hook onto because it's added just the same way. Let's go ahead and add our extender chain. So I'm just opening up the jump ring that's already there, adding on the other 9 jump rings that I had put together already, then putting that back on, and then we're going to do the same thing down here and add our little charm that we made with the extra fire polish bead. And then after that, you now have a completed necklace. And with that, we now have a completed set. So our first video that came out is the earrings to this set, and then the second video came out was the bracelet, and then we just finished the third video for the necklace. So I want to say thank you very much for watching. I appreciate the watch. Don't forget to like and subscribe, And if you'd like to, go ahead and hit that notification bell. That way you'll be notified the next time I come out with a new video. Also, don't forget to comment. I'd love to hear what you think about this video. Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!